Hello and welcome back to Special Education Thursday. It's been a little while since we've done one of these, so I thought it would be nice to do kind of a quick recap of a lot of the resources that we have at AJE about secondary transition. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Maria Bloyer. I'm Director of Programs and Outreach here at Advocates for Justice and Education. I am the occasional host of Special Education Thursday. Originally started, and most of our special education Thursdays are still hosted by the amazing Molly Whalen, who we're privileged to have on our board. But I'm here today with two of my AJE colleagues, Tamisha Lawrence and Nyla Morton. They're going to tell us a little bit about themselves and about how their work intersects with secondary transition. But I wanted to just kind of take a second to welcome you. And I know it's been a while since we've had one of these, so I'm excited to be doing another edition of Special Education Thursday. All right. So, as folks know, these are pretty casual, friendly conversations. And we usually start off with just who are you and what do you do here at AJE? And, how is it that you came to be doing this work? So, Tamisha, do you want to lead us off and tell us a little bit about you and your work here at AJE?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Tamisha Lawrence, and I'm the Parent Support and Secondary Transition Specialist here at Advocates for Justice and Education. Um, I will say I started this work first as a parent, and I have a child who has a disability who I had to long and advocate for, who is 20 years old now, but I've advocated for him since he was 18 months. And it was such a long road. I didn't really think I could do it for other parents, what I can do, what I ended up having to do for myself. But I've been with AJE now for almost 4 years, and it has been a very rewarding and empowering position.
Wonderful. Nyla, you want to jump in and tell us a little bit about how you wound up hanging out with us here at AJE?
Yes, so I'm Nyla. I'm the youth coordinator at AJE. How I was able to be a part of this amazing team was I was graduating with my master's in social work, but also what drew me to the organization is I am a person with a disability and I understand the ups and downs when it comes to secondary transitioning as well as when it comes to special education. So I felt it was great to be able to be a part of this wonderful team so I can be able to provide support and guidance to families who are also going through similar things that I went through when I was younger.
Perfect. And what's your title here at AJE?
I'm a youth coordinator.
Perfect. So I realize that, I've now said secondary transition about 10 times in this conversation and we haven't defined it yet. So Tamisha, what on earth are we talking about today?
Okay, so secondary transition is a mandated, person-centered process that prepares students, and I would say and families students with disabilities and their families. Um, General in DC, and it starts from age 14 and ends at 22. It prepares them and sometimes for earlier than 14, but it prepares them for life after high school, focusing on post-secondary education, employment, independent living, vocational training, and community-based services, sometimes internships, all created through the IEP and 504 based goals.
So I just want to make sure I understand. It's a set of activities though, right?
Yes.
It's not like a class. Okay.
No. Yeah, it's a set of like acts, a set of, well, I call it processes, but activities based on, your IEP and 504 goals for a transition after high school.
Okay. And then so Nyla, how does your work as youth coordinator kind of fit into this secondary transition conversation?
Yeah, so the way it fits is by with my role, I'm able to provide support to students, especially students with disabilities, to build skills, connection, especially confidence to move from high school to further education, work, and independent adult life. And one of the ways is through the Youth Advisory Board, which focus on helping students from ages 14 to 22 build their advocacy skills and provide leadership development training and things like that. If it was good to start at 14, since that is the age that when students participate in the IEPs and start planning their future, as well as secondary transitioning. And also, I do the youth newsletter, which also provides information regarding secondary transitioning as well.
I think one of my favorite things about IDEA is it talks about civic engagement as a purpose of the law.
Hmm.
And I like the fact that the Youth Advisory Board is really designed to help students be able to do that part. It's not
Hmm.
just voting, it's not just working, it's being part of a community. Um, and Tamisha, I feel like your title kind of explains some of this. But how do you interact with secondary transition as a concept and in your work with families?
So while we don't specifically focus on secondary transition, with we collaborate and connect families with some great resources. And we also have the ability to provide families with updates and events and other important information from those agencies. But we also provide trainings to support some of those, like on the path to get to those. And me specifically, I can help to just address some of those goals you may have and help you set them or help you create them and even prepare during some of your meetings with your IEP team.
Okay. So you mentioned agencies, and I kind of want to ask about that. What agencies are involved in the secondary transition process?
So your LEA,
And
that's your
what is
current.
one of the rules on secondary on Special Education Thursdays, whenever we use an acronym, we interrupt the person and make them say what acronym was. So your LEA, what is an LEA?
Your LEA is your local education agency, and that is your current educational setting, your current education institution. So it could be a public charter school, DCPS, or an OSCE approved educational in program for you. They would have access to your secondary transition planning.
Okay, so who makes the secondary transition plan?
Who makes it?
Yeah.
Uh, Us. The IEP, well, the entire IEP team, not us. The entire IEP team creates the
Okay.
secondary transition plan with the youth and the family being at the center of it. Primarily the youth. That's one of the main things I want to focus on, just making sure that you know that this is about the youth knows that this is about their life and their next steps.
And what other agencies are involved besides the local educational agency, besides the school? What other agencies are part of this
So,
conversation?
so us, Advocates for Justice and Education, um, the OSCE, again, your LEA, the Public Charter School. Um, there are some other supporting agencies such as DC3C, School Talk DC. They facilitate inclusive community of practice and improve transition outcomes, quality trust. They provide advocacy to support um, support regarding transition of rights and assisted decision making, et cetera, and many more.
So I'm thinking about government agencies. So, I know a lot of young people are connected with RSA, Rehabilitation Services Administration, through their secondary transition plan. Some of our videos go through how RSA and the Department of Disability Services, DDS, support students. Should families anticipate seeing agency representatives at their IEP meetings where they're talking about secondary transition?
So, in my experience, I believe it's the most important, like DDS and RSA are like the most important people to invite to your IEP meetings when you're discussing transition. But often, um, if they're not invited or it's not a request, it doesn't happen. So I recommend like always requesting that they be part of it because ultimately the moment that you transition out of high school, you will continue being supported by RSA and DDS.
Yeah. I think that's a great point to transition to some of our resources that we have. One of the reasons why we wanted to do this Special Education Thursday is to give families kind of an overview of some of the resources we have. And the very first one is kind of what Tamisha just alluded to, which is accessing RSA and DDS services and programming. And one thing I really like about these first two videos is the first one, we're talking to those government agencies, the ones that Tamisha just mentioned, RSA and DDS, about how to access services. And then the very next video, we're talking to one of our advocacy partners, Disability Rights DC, about kind of advocating and when you might need to push RSA a little bit more. So I really like those two videos going together. And then the third video is amazing. It's on supported decision making. And that one is a wonderful conversation with Morgan Whitlock, who is formerly at Quality Trust, about kind of the importance of supported decision making as a process and as a legal document. And then the last one is something that is very timely, given right now OSSI and the State Board of Education are thinking about making some adjustments to diploma requirements in DC, thinking about the diploma and certificate tracks. And I think either of you can answer this, but it's a really important question. Um, does it matter if you're on the diploma track? Can you still participate in secondary transition activities if you're on the diploma track?
Absolutely. Like you
Yes.
still need to know what you're going to do after
Yeah.
diploma, after certificate, after trade pro, whatever you're doing, you still need to know what you should still have planning for what the next steps are.
And I think that is, thank you both for being so clear on that. Niall's like, yes, yes. I don't know why you're asking me this. Yes. And then Tamisha's like, why are you asking? Yeah, of course, we should plan. But I think it's so important because a lot of times, we'll have people say like, oh, well, they're going to go to college. I don't need to think about this. And there's a lot to think about. Even, for students with disabilities who are heading to college, there's still a lot to think about because the legal landscape changes tremendously. You're going from an IDEA space to an ADA space, and the law is
Mhm.
very, very different, and your rights are very, very different. So, thank you for that. Um, and one thing we haven't talked about yet is the healthcare transition. We've really focused on secondary transition as an educational phenomenon, and it is, and it's in IDEA, the Education with Disabilities, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA. Um, and that's where secondary transition comes from. But healthcare transition is part of that. And we have some amazing resources about that I just want to flag for folks because, there is a ton of research out there about how young people are not adequately accessing healthcare services, you know, after they leave their parents' home, until often a little bit later in life than we would like to see them accessing services. And this has just got some great resources about how you can make healthcare transition part of your students' secondary transition plan. Um, I'm a huge fan of the checklists and the resources here. They're very, very helpful. And I want to give you both kind of a chance to jump in on the healthcare part of it, if you've got anything to add, besides yay, very important and part of independent living.
Yeah, I will also say, like, I think it's very important, especially for student with disability, to be able to know their eligibility. A lot of them don't know about eligibility, especially when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid. And I know that's like this thing when people hear Medicare, they think, oh, it's just only for those who are seniors, but it is also for people who have disabilities, at any age. So it's very important to be able to go through and see what is the eligibility and what is the process. And plus, each state is different. And even though DC isn't considered a state, but there still are certain laws and policies and things that go into place when it comes to eligibility.
I think that's a really good point, that it is different for every state. And that's why I'm always thankful that there's a PTI, Parent Training and
Mhm.
Information Center, or Help to Help Information Center to help families navigate. Tamisha, did you want to add anything to the healthcare part of the conversation?
Um, I mean, the same thing in general. Healthcare transition to me is extremely important in knowing how to um, just navigate like once you transition, like some of your stuff really becomes on you, as the
Hmm.
youth to kind of navigate what your next steps are. And I think it's really important to know how to do certain things, ask certain questions, know that you're not like even explaining when in an IEP meeting, you're not a spectator when you go to the doctor or when you're dealing with healthcare, you're an active participant and you have to be able to ask questions, know who to talk to, write down your resources and who to call when you have a certain type of illness or who to call when you need to get records and stuff like that. And so it's just really important to just know and feel comfortable in your role and with even the person that's providing your health care.
Yeah, I love that. And I like how concrete you were about, know who to call. I think one of the things I love about this resource um, is the healthcare transition quiz and the checklists that are available there. I'm often amazed by the number of young people who don't know what medication they're taking or how to refill their medication, and that is so, so important. Especially because once you turn 18, all of those rights do go to the child. That child is now an adult. We get lots of phone calls here every year saying, this child now has all their educational decision-making rights, and I didn't say that was okay. And I go, well, it's not up to you anymore.
Hmm.
The law says that it happens at 18 and it happens at 18. And that's also why I love that supported decision-making resource on there. And we link to the supported decision-making templates on our website as well.
Yeah, and
So
I listed them as a resource as well. Quality Trust, they assist with that.
they do, and that's the video we have on supported decision making is there as well. So where else can parents go? AJE has a ton of trainings. Our trainings are accessible for youth and adults. We have a new website. That's why it's in red. We have a new part of our website with the training calendar there. You can add those trainings to your own personal Google Calendar, so you will never be far away from us and you will know where we are. And Nyla, I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the Youth Advisory Board and the application process and what you're working on there.
Oh yes. So the Youth Advisory Board is a program that me and Maria helped started. And it's for students from ages 14 to 22. It's mostly for students with disabilities. And the focus is on helping students build their advocacy skills and leadership development skills. We found out that there's not a lot of representation when it comes to the State Board of Education in DC. So we felt like it was great to be able to build a program to actually know what's going on when it comes to the youth who have disabilities and what issues they would like to focus on and advocate for. But also with this youth advisory board, it is helpful for those who are going through secondary transition because they can use those skills when it comes to the IEP meetings and also deciding what they want to do with their future and what is a good, to be able to build a plan and map out their goals.
I always tell people that secondary transition is really about adulting,
Hmm.
right? And I hate that word, but it's become a word now. So adulting. But I really think that it's, preparing you for the rest of life. And it's
Hmm.
sort of where the rubber meets the road on special education and what we're trying to do here. And I like the fact that we've created kind of an avenue for young people to figure out how to do that in their adult life a little bit. And what is that going to look like for them, and what, to kind of try it out because the reality is, I think you're absolutely right. Students with disabilities are underrepresented in a lot of boards in the city
Hmm.
and in a lot of spaces. And I think giving them a space to kind of practice those skills that maybe they, have identified on their secondary transition plan or not.
Yeah.
It's important. Okay. So, Tamisha, you get the last word here. The famous ending question that we like to use with these are, is kind of like, what's the one thing you wish parents knew, or what's like a misconception that people have that makes you crazy? So here's your chance. What is the one thing you wish families knew about about secondary transition in general?
So, the one thing that I wish is that parents and youth just knew how important their involvement and their words and their opinions and their suggestions, like anything that you want as it relates to your IP, your transition goals, your health. You are in the beginning of all of that. And I just wish parents knew how important their input was and youth knew how important their input is in making sure that things happen, keeping it, writing it down, sending that information to people, meaning is that you memorialized it and put it in writing and said, this is what I want. And at some point, everybody has to listen to it and pay attention to it. And at the very least, even if it seems unrealistic, they have to get as close to it as as possible because it's your life. It's what you have to prepare for.
I like that. I like ending that on, I like that as a good note to end on. It's your life and it's, your next step in life. So, like I said, Special Education Thursday, we have a ton of resources on this playlist about secondary transition. Hopefully you find them helpful. I will link to all of them in the comments for this video, but also please note this video is part of a larger playlist that is just about secondary transition. And we encourage all of you to check those out. And please do look at our trainings and the Youth Advisory Board for applicants. But thank you so much. And I really appreciate y'all being with me today, this afternoon. Have fun and enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doo-doo.